I'm back from the dead, and holy crap do I have a story to tell. My last upload was nearly a year ago, and in that video I said I was gonna learn game development. But that can take months to learn, and once you have to set aside an ungodly amount of time just to make games, and I mean, who honestly has time for that? The first thing I need if I want to make games is a good computer, and so I guess I needed to buy a PC, except the prices on these things were ridiculous. So you know what? Screw it, I'm gonna build my own. Except I don't have any knowledge of how to do that. So after employing the help of my dad as well as that of my friends over at Loshifire, I began obtaining a ton of knowledge about how to build a computer, and 3 months later, boom, I built one. Now I just gotta pick a game engine, and I mean, how hard can that be? It's not like the general public has any kind of preference or anything. Unity, the best game developer software.
Unity makes my toes tingle.
What? Using Unity Learn, because Unity is clearly the simplest and most understandable game engine of all times. I took a short class called Unity Essentials, which just taught me the basic stuff like how to spawn a bean and turn it red. But that was the easy part, because the next step is where got real confusing. In case you don't already know, the heart and soul of game development is programming. Pretty much everything you can do in every game you've ever played is powered by code, and that's what I gotta learn next, so I'm kinda screwed. The course that was gonna teach me this was called Junior Programmer, and I thought it was gonna be an absolute piece of cake because it involved the term junior. But I guess I was wrong, because this junior fella seemed to have some devious tricks up his sleeve and wanted nothing more than to give me a hard time. The course was divided into 5 basic objectives called prototypes, with each one teaching you a different basic essential skill, like getting input from the user or making things fly that aren't supposed to. Luckily for me, my brain has been able to withstand the punches of other mind-numbing tasks in the past, so I mean, like, come on, it's not gonna be that hard, is it? Prototype 1. In this project they gave me a road and a tank, and I have to make it move. And unless I roll it down a hill like a ball, the only way I can do that is with code. This meant I had to write my first ever script, so I created a new one, opened it up, and luckily I'm doing this as part of a course, so I did have a guide. And honestly, I don't remember what this guy's name was or if he even had one, so from this point forward, he's Franklin. And when it came to making the tank move, he was actually a pretty helpful guy, and he put it real simple for me. Create a new variable called speed and apply code in the that says to translate tank's position forward direction relative to the game object. What? Thankfully Franklin was there to explain everything, and to my surprise it actually kind of began to make a little bit of sense. So let's just run this game here and alright, let's just edit this code a little bit. Boom, now the tank moves slower than the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A. All that's left is to give the player some control, but I mean, like, who needs to do that when you got this fun little slider at the side of the screen, right? Except the problem is that if you're a player, you probably don't have this giant advanced menu around you, so plan B. I had to learn this new thing called input.getAxis, which basically just takes the input from the arrow keys and turns it into a value of 1, 0, or -1. Then I just multiplied the tank speed by that number, and voila, now the game works. 1 prototype down, 4 to go, let's keep moving. Prototype 2. Unlike the last prototype, this one is an actual game. The first thing I did was chuck in this little farmer guy, and I gave him basic player movement, except this time I limited him from going too far off screen, and I also unchecked use gravity on his rigid body so that he wouldn't be yoinked down into the abyss. Now I gotta give him something to fire out of his stomach. So I chose this banana prefab and gave it a script to move forward, and boom, now it moves. But I needed to spawn at the player's position, and that actually brings us to the 3 new skills that I had to learn in this lesson. Instantiate, Destroy, and RNGesus. Instantiate just spawns whatever you want at whatever position you tell it to, and Destroy, I don't think I have to explain that one. The goal with this game is to spawn in 3 different animals, and of the ones I chose, they come in 3 different flavors. Tenders, beef, and moose meat. Then I just called on the help of RNGesus, and now they spawn completely randomly. All that was left to do was to make the bananas and animals destroy each other on contact, and voila, now the game is done. Prototype 3. This prototype is just supposed to be an innocent little running game. What could possibly go wrong? This was the first prototype to teach me about physics, and with this little thing called force mode.impulse, I was able to make the player jump over oncoming traffic cones. But they also introduced me to something else pretty cool called a boolean. A boolean basically stores a value of 1 or 0, meaning true or false, and in this case, if the player's touching the ground, it's true. If they're not, it's false. After I set up all the booleans, I was introduced to every developer's best friend, particle effects. The first particle effect was called explosion, and I made it so that when the player dies, they explode. And they also can't jump when they're dead. Now I gotta program the sound effects, because those are super important if you want your game to have a lot of Polish. And after I finished that, I had one last thing to go, and I still don't know how a company as big and somehow also selfish as Unity made an oversight this tremendously stupid. I had to give the player a particle effect called Dirt Splatter, and I don't think anybody actually used this for the intended purpose. I don't know what they were thinking here. My guess is that they either thought everyone taking the course was a full-grown mature adult, or Franklin is not quite as innocent as he seems. But hey, at least I'm finished with this one, so time for Prototype 4. Prototype 4, and this one's all about balls. In this one I had to make an enemy ball chase the player ball, and at first I thought this was really impressive, but then Franklin had to slap me in the face with knowledge and tell me that this could be done with some very deceptively simple math. All I had to do was subtract the player's position from the enemy's position, and boom, it had a path to follow. After that, not much happened, so long story short, I gave the player control of their balls, added a power up, and oh wait, I have to make the enemies spawn in waves? Franklin tried to explain the code for this one, and yeah, I didn't really get it. I don't know what the code said, and frankly, I don't even know what Franklin said, but on the bright side, if I ever need to spawn something in waves, well, Control-C, Control-V. But at least the game works now. And now that it's done, we have one more prototype to go. The one containing the last skill that I need to learn, user interface. For the fifth and final project, I had to create this off-brand Wish.com looking Fruit Ninja ripoff. And to start, they made me pick a bunch of objects and launch them into the air with physics. Then I created my first ever UI element called a Text Mesh Pro Ugui. I assigned each object a score value so that whenever you clicked on it, it would add or subtract from the total score, but it would be really stupid to let the game continue even when the score is well into the negatives, so I needed a game over screen. Once again, I needed a Text Mesh Pro Ugui, so I plopped one in there, gave it a simple restart button, and boom, now you can restart the game if you really suck that bad. All that was left in the lesson was to make difficulty buttons, which I did by making 3 new buttons and assigning each of them a different number to multiply the spawn rate by. The only problem is that I forgot to make them disappear when you clicked on them, so you could just keep on pressing and be met with the horrible abomination you see before you. So after I fixed that, the game was done. Woohoo! Prototype 5 was officially complete. I had broken the curse and been freed from Franklin's junior programmer hellscape. And as a reward for my months and months of hard work, Unity was kind enough to bestow upon me the wonderful gift of a 50-page exam. Unity, what the actual hell?